see you, William Canders and the powers that be at the Whitney Museum. You are profiting, you are complicit, and you're turning a blind eye to the pain and suffering of poor and working class people all around the world. You cannot be absolved and deflect the attention away from your actions and your immoral behavior by giving to charities, showing liberal artists, showing liberal art, showcasing artists of color, showcasing international artists who are socially engaged artists. You will not be absolved. We denounce you. We denounce you, Whitney Museum. We have a responsibility as activists and artists to hold all cultural institutions accountable. We really hope that our artist friends, colleagues, and friends of good conscience at other art institutions, groups, and collectives come forward and denounce the Whitney along with us. This is art washing. Your silence is contributing to art washing. Your silence is deafening and means complicity. It's time to stand up for what's right. It's not too late. And finally, we are excited to see so many folks out here at this town hall to imagine what an art world that is not financed by corporations and wealthy collectors and greed could look like.
Colonialism and the market-driven economy it spawned has accelerated climate change. And due to our culture of consumption, people's islands are disappearing. Those are people's homes. Sovereign nations are going to be invaded to expand this oil war. You ask yourselves, why did the staff at the Whitney stand up for people at the border? People that they will never see. People from a different world, quite literally and figuratively. If you have not thought of the answer, it's a 4-letter word.
A year and a half ago, I was offered a job at MoMA PS1, but after they found out that I had just had a baby, they rescinded the offer. Last summer, I filed a claim with the New York City Commission on Human Rights and took my story to the press, hoping to hold the institution accountable, make clear that sex discrimination and pregnancy discrimination are breaking the law, and encourage other women to come forward. Nothing has happened. I'm here today to show my solidarity with the staff of the Whitney as they demand that their institution not profit from more profiteers. With the staff of the new museum who just voted to unionize, congratulations. And with the art handlers of MoMA PS1 who demand fair pay. We need solidarity between Me Too, labor, and the fight against dirty money, because all of these are connected, affecting and infecting every institution. Senior administrators are allowed to act with impunity and break the law as long as they have good relationships with donors. We are sick and tired of this poisonous hypocrisy, whereby institutions show exhibitions of protest art supported by foreclosure kings, like Mnuchin, Nidek. They present feminist performance while discriminating against women. That's an easy one, isn't it? We've had it with this corrupt model and being told that museums must take money from arms dealers, even as they pay low wages and unfair benefits, block staff from unionizing, and harass and discriminate against their employees. We say enough. Let's unionize every institution. Let's withhold our labor and our art until museums make the changes we demand.
Helga, can we use the menu in? Rick Chaboya, Kumayai Pai. Greetings to everyone. I'm Rick Chaboya, and I come to you as an indigenous person here living in New York for the last 12 years. My nation is actually in what's now called California, the colonial state of California and Baja California of Mexico. We cross this imaginary border and always have for thousands of years. So one of my roles is as the board chair of the American Indian Community House. And for us, it's been very, very difficult because as indigenous people, we're relational. That's a core of who we are. There's certain things about who we are as people and who we are in obligation to our elders and to our ancestors, and to be relational is one of them. And I say that to separate that from building relations that are transactional, right? Relational is that once you start to work with someone and know someone, that's what really builds whatever happens from there. It's not what you can get out of it or what you expect out of it. And we've, over the last couple of years, built very strong relations with the staff at the Whitney Museum. And it was we had a very particular purpose for that. Because we wanted to bring our worldview, our people, our understanding of the world into this cultural institution. And had ignored us for many, many years. American Indian Community House is 50 this year. We've been around this city for 50 years. And I'm not going to drop names, but we supported some of the most renowned indigenous artists. They got their start with the American Indian Community House. But you know where they were shut out of for many, many of those years? Places like the Whitney, the Met, the Brooklyn Museum, etc. We were erased. We were invisible. Our artists were invisible. And our work has always been not only to present ourselves in a sovereign way, but also to bring our artists and our people into these institutions, these colonial institutions, right? And so we've worked very hard to do so at the Whitney. So we want to honor those relations, and we want to honor the staff who've been so strong and so courageous to come out. So we're continuing to engage with the Whitney. Not with the powers that be, not with the leadership, but with the staff who we want to stand in solidarity with, right? The other really crucial part, as I mentioned, is for indigenous people, we have suffered erasure and invisibility everywhere, but nowhere more profound than New York City. When I talk to people about being from the American Indian Community House and being part of the indigenous community, believe it or not, I'm sure it'll be a surprise to people in this audience, but oftentimes the first question is, there's indigenous people, there's native people in New York City? And they think of us maybe out there somewhere, if they think of us at all. Out there, on a plateau, looking over the land. You can't imagine us in an urban setting. But we are here. The majority of indigenous people live in urban settings now, all over the world. This is where we find home now. And oftentimes because we've been displaced. And because we're trying to find the opportunities that have been denied to us on our own nations, right? So we still remain sovereign. We still remain in following of our ancestors and our elders wherever we go, and we have to let them speak to us. And so part of the reason that we've continued to engage with the Whitney, even though we are incredibly opposed to Warren Cantor's and Safari Land, is because our board is not, unlike the Whitney's board, is a community board. Where we take our essentially our orders from our community. And our community believes at this point the better way to make change of the Whitney is to continue to engage with the staff who we've built relations with, and to not allow ourselves to be once again erased and invisible from this institution. We need to be present in that institution, and we'll continue to do so. And from the inside, if you will, from within that institution, we'll continue to express our view, our worldview, our perspective. We'll bring our prayers, we'll bring our blessings, and we'll bring our sovereignty into that institution as a way we believe we can make change. Thank you.
Y nos dice que somos hombres guerreros. Sí, somos hombres guerreros. Hombres guerreros que traemos no las balas, sino el conocimiento. Hombres guerreros, no que traemos gases, sino que traemos estrategias. Estrategias de reunificar, de construir a cada una de vuestras comunidades.
And yes, they say that we are warriors, but we are not warriors, again, of bullets or gas, but we acknowledge and value other forms of life. Beyond the gas attacks at the border by product of safari land, through neoliberalism, we see how capitalism and colonialism fucks with families. They take the, I'm from Mexico, so first the men come, and then the families would return, would reunite, or sometimes there would be some sort of reunification or flow, because that's how that's who we are as people. But as we progress, we see that there is no flow of people, yet the needs are still there all over the world. You see migrants coming from the shores in Europe, here in the United States. Now families are coming because it's like if we might never see each other again, and they're putting their children at risk. And then here in the United States, there's a whole class of people in the shadows, people who have been here for generations, that are descendants of slaves, that are still being oppressed by the government that demands a slavery class. And so we're here in a privileged space, speaking a privileged language, and we're talking about people that are not proportionately represented in this room. We're talking about indigenous people, we're talking about immigrants, we're talking about families. And if you see around the room, there's an overwhelming representation of white males in a privileged space where when we're talking about the people that we're talking, they might not have access to literacy or literacy tools. So absolutely, popular education is going to be important. But we must recognize the intimate powers of the patriarchy within our collective, within our progressive or revolutionary spaces, because these are the intimate structures that are destroying us.
The answer from Weinberg was such a draw a line in the sand, that we couldn't stay silent, but it makes perfect sense. Because if you question one board, we know what that means, and they do too, right? So thinking about that, we're going to break out in groups. I want to call facilitators or people that are going to hold the breakout groups to lead your groups. Do we have people from DTZ?